Hey, hey friends. I finally figured out the background feature just so I could talk about this tweet. Now, normally when I see tweets on the internet, I have a very aggressive block button and I have a block channel chat that I participate in, and I'm very quick to just send it off to the block chat and nuke the post. And I don't know why. For some reason, I sent this post to a friend, and she said, "You know what? Why don't you add this to your list of things to talk about for your Why People Are Leaving the Church series?" Now, I have not left the church. I do not have any intentions of leaving the church at this time. As a whole, my relationship with God is something I'm very comfortable with, and it's something I'd like to continue to pursue. But I think even though I'm still a part of the church, I still think that there are things I can side-eye within the church. And tweets like this one from Mr. Tenrio, tweets like these, and it's still up, by the way. It's still up. I screenshot this tweet like 5 minutes before I started the video. It's still up. And it's still around, and people are still having discussions about it. And it's so funny that I'm talking about why women are leaving the church, why people are leaving the church, and of course that's what this girl decided to highlight. Now, of course, I'll lean out of the way. This one guy says that's not a Christian man, and then she claims that Christian men are one of the top wife rapists. Now, I'm not getting into that. I don't have the stats. But I will say that in the Christian community, just from things that I have heard taught from the pulpit, just from things that I have, conversations I've witnessed with Christian people, and just literature as well that I've read, you get a very strong sense within the church that your body is not your own. That is something that's very taught in the faith. Your body is not your own. Your life is not your own. And people are very quick to remind you that once you're married, especially as a woman, your body is to be given, you're to give yourself completely over to your husband for complete access, free access. I've heard people say that it said withholding sex is a sin of witchcraft. Never read that in the Bible, but that is what we are taught. You have some people who, I have to stop and tell you this story. So one time I was talking to a religious leader. I will not name names because, I don't need to start a he said, she said, and, the way my life is, people love to take everything I say, and if I say, I talked to so-and-so, they're going to send it to that exact person and start problems with my life. So I don't need any smoke right now. I think I have enough in my life at the moment, so we're not going to do that. But I was talking to a religious leader at the time. My family's always been very involved in the church, so no matter what church I'm in, I'm always, pretty connected to the leaders. And there was this one gentleman who decided to tell me a story. And, I don't know. I guess I just have one of those faces. I don't know. People always seem super comfortable approaching me and telling me things that I'm always like, what? Why did you tell me this? Well, this is something you can't waterboard this kind of stuff out of me, but some people feel like I'm the safe space to tell these things to. I don't know why. Anyway, so this gentleman decided to tell me a story. I believe at the time there was a situation that happened where a man was arrested because he decided to engage in sexual activity with his wife while she was in a coma. Of course, we all know that on TikTok we call that kind of thing SA or grape because certain words flag the algorithm. Flag the TikTok gods and they'll shut down your video. And I remember discussing this with a spiritual leader, and he was so aghast at the situation that, oh my goodness, I can't believe this man got arrested for behaving this way in the hospital, mind you, and while she's in a coma. And he turns and looks at me and he's like, well, what was he supposed to do? And at the time, you know, I've never been a person who's openly disagreeable with people. You know, growing up in a Christian and immigrant household, you kind of learn that you kind of learn to be agreeable and not talk up too much. You know, the seen and not heard vibe. But well, it's not even that. It wasn't even a seen and not heard. It's like you must be seen and heard in ways that we approve of. So there were caveats. But anyway, we won't get into that now. But I remember being so decidedly uncomfortable when that man looked at me based off of that article, that news story that was going viral, of that man repeatedly forcing himself on his wife and being arrested for it. And again, she was in a coma. She wasn't even a real active participant in the process. And he looked at me and said, well, what was he supposed to do? And I was sitting there thinking, well, if your wife is in a coma, she's literally fighting between the veil between life and death. You know, maybe we could take a break, pray, do something. You know, I know Christian people, you know, DJing, as the young people say, DJing is not appropriate. Taking care of it yourself is not appropriate. But it's like, I don't understand why you can't abstain, why you feel like that's necessary. And a lot of women struggle in marriages in the Christian community because this is the kind of thing that we're taught, that your body is always to be accessible to your husband. And we're taught for so long that we're supposed to shut down all lustful thoughts, shut down all lustful thoughts, lustful actions. And I'm not saying we should indulge in that. That's not where I'm going with it. But we're taught to remain as pure as possible. And then as soon as the wedding day arrives and the wedding night arrives, we're supposed to turn into porn stars. I don't know if I'm allowed to say it on TikTok, but we're supposed to turn into people who have all this vast knowledge and experience, and we're supposed to be able to satisfy every need of our husbands, and we're supposed to be ready and available no matter when, no matter if, no matter how. And honestly, I promise you, tweets like the one that guy put out there, dime a dozen on TikTok, on Twitter, dime a dozen on Twitter. The amount of times I've had to block people for saying that there's no need for consent during marriage, making references to the R word, and thinking it's acceptable. And, you know, there is no R word in marriage because your bodies are each other's and you're not to deny the person any kind of bedtime activities, because that's what God wants. God wants you to be just ready and available for your husband, no matter when, no matter if, no matter how. And, you know, I do think that gives a lot of people pause, a lot of women especially pause, when it comes to thinking about continuing with the faith and pursuing a relationship with a godly spouse. Because when a certain level of agency is not granted to you, it's hard to want to go in there and just blindly trust that everything's going to be fine, everything's going to work out. And then if you try to say no, if you try to put up boundaries, everybody wants to remind you of your place. You know, you must be obedient to your pastor. You must be submissive to your husband. People don't think of the opposite of, hey, are you abusing your power here? And what exactly are you asking this person to do.